there were so many errors made and so many errors forced. There's a critical moment late in the game, clearly. A 50-metre penalty is not paid to Bailey Scott. The error is made by the Collingwood players who surge forward after a mark is taken, and then the umpire doesn't officiate in that moment. He sticks with the mark. This is how it unfolded, and then this is the explanation from league headquarters.
One of two calls could be made. It could be play on immediately, or it could be stand, which would indicate that the mark had been paid. Neither of those two calls occurred in the immediate moments after the whistle was blown, and Bailey takes 4 steps or so inbound and looks to play on. So the correct call should have been play on initially. If the umpire called stand, indicating that a mark had been paid, and those Collingwood players continued to contest the player or try and contest the ball, it would have been a 50-metre penalty. But what's happened here is whistle and no immediate call or instruction, and players have been left confused, and that is what we are focusing on.
So no 50-metre penalty was required according to headquarters. That explanation simply doesn't ring true. It is not up to players to determine whether a player is played on after a mark or not. You cannot charge forwards. McCreery and Sidebottom completely lost themselves in the moment of the frenzy. That is an instantly recognisable and automatic 50-metre penalty every single time it happens.
Everyone knows that except Laura Kane from the AFL. It's going to sound disrespectful, and I don't want it to be disrespectful. But how can Laura possibly put that explanation out and think that the football public will say, oh, yeah, no, fine. Fully agree. Yeah, that's understandable. That's codswallop, Jared. The football public's being treated like children. Absolute children. We know the rules. We knew it at the time. And to come out 24 hours later, or 40, whatever the bloody time it is, 24 hours later, and say to the millions of football supporters in this country, no, there's a bit of confusion, but no, we're sort of comfortable with it. That is rubbish. That is a rubbish call, because at no stage in the history of the game and in the future of the game can players assume that a player has played on. Oh, I thought he was going to play on, so let's just run over. And to think, and others say that Scott played on when he took the mark. I don't think so. I thought he had momentum going towards the ball.
And then he backs off.
And then it's very hard to stop. It's very hard to stop. Oh, I've marked it, and what, just jolt to a stop? That doesn't happen. And when that happens in other times, the umpires go, no, back over your mark. So they call it back. And when Laura said, oh, he could have called play on stand, he couldn't have called stand, because they allow players to run back from the mark and give them 3 seconds before they call stand. That explanation doesn't, you said the word ring true, that explanation doesn't cut it.
No, you can run to the mark. You can't run straight through the mark.
Certainly not to.
It was so easily recognised in the moment that it happened. It does no one any favours to find a way to justify that and not register as an error. It does nothing. So you've written a broader piece around the umpiring, and I do think this is the trouble. It does nothing to help us have faith in the way that the game is being umpired at the moment if we're going to search for little technicalities and isolation to justify a decision.
I was hoping the AFL would come out today, Jared. Sorry, I got a bit excited there. It just does my head in at the moment. And I'm not an umpire basher. And that was 50 metres against Marcus Windhager, who ran from behind. You know, was it there? Maybe. Call him back. Call him back. Hey, come on, come back. There's the throw. When did we start allowing the shovel in unison with your hand? It's crept in over the last decade, I reckon. Now we call play on. That one, that was iffy. But look at all the plays around the ball, Jared. It's so hard to adjudicate this game at the moment. There's so many layers. And I don't like this. He's on his knees. That was holding the ball. There's 36 players on the ground at any one time. Only one can have the ball. So one person is beating everyone else for the ball. He's got to be rewarded. He's got to be looked after. The AFL is allowed to say they're wrong. Just say, hey, we got it wrong on the weekend. You know, we're pretty good. It's a hard game. Yep. We would all agree. Take us along. Don't treat us like we're fools. And that's what I think is what's happening at the moment. But it's not Laura Kane's fault, the umpiring and the public are just... And then the umpires and the players. We had Trevor Spoke, remember? I don't know what holding the ball is. We've got a situation where something has to be done, and I've never spoken about like this for umpires in 14 years, said next year, pal. I never have, but it's just... I think it's got to a critical point, and I think some key people have got to get together and say, right, Rodney Eade had an answer. Let's get some key people together and say to the umpires, what is the most difficult part of our game to umpire? And let's all work around that. How can we all work around that, please? Players, AFL, coaches? We need something to happen.